Okay, hi everybody. Welcome back. We're going to do another Disney Adventure read-through. I know, amazing. We're actually doing one of these very close to another episode. Usually they're like half a year apart, but frankly, I didn't have a lot of Christmas content ready for this particular season, so I figured sometimes you just gotta bust out the Christmas content wherever you can find it. So that's what we're going to do. Just as before, I got this one from the Retro Gaming Expo. This is the December 1990 issue, so 32 years old. Oh boy. This is actually the second ever issue of Disney Adventures Magazine, and this is one I did not own as a kid. All the other ones that we've covered on the show so far were from my childhood, but this one I bought because I didn't have it before. I was always kind of aware of what Disney Adventure magazines were out there because other friends would have them or I'd see them on the store shelves, but we didn't get each one of them. So now I have it. So congratulations, adult me. I had the very first issue of Disney Adventures magazine, and actually that one was in our collection for a long time and was surprisingly, it stayed in decent, workable shape for a lot of it. There were quite a few of them that we lost the covers of because we read them so much that things just fell apart. But the first issue had its cover for a fairly long time. But anyways, number 2. We got number 2. So let's have a look at the front cover, just because again, this is a big selling point when you're a little kid for Disney Adventure magazine was what was going on the front cover. Usually a celebrity and usually a bunch of cartoon characters. So in this case, we got the Rescue Rangers. We just did an Ally Hasn't on Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers a few months ago. This was right in their heyday. 1990 was the series was still going. And we got Fred Savage. Fred Savage was a big deal back in this point in time, but we'll talk a little bit more about Fred Savage once we get to his particular section in the magazine. So let's begin. What do we got? Football cards. Never cared about football, so I didn't care about it then, don't care about it now. And Bazooka Joe. I've never had Bazooka Joe. I know it exists. It's one of the big themes of this particular issue is the spies and codes and stuff like that. So they got this spy guy here, just kind of looking spy-rific. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have much to say about that. Truth be told, we'll probably only skim over that because most of the appeal these days of the Disney Adventure magazines is the pop culture stuff and how we remember that. So, Passport would meaning, I guess, just the table of contents. Skittles are basically still what they are. You know what the best addition to Skittles was? I don't even know if a lot of these are still around. Sour Skittles? That was a good choice. And even a little advertisement pretty early for the next issue of Disney Adventures. Usually these sort of like, here's what you're getting into next time is at the very end, but here they put it at the very beginning. I think it makes more sense at the end, personally. Okay, well actually look at that. We are already here at Fred Savage's section. So I read through this interview, and these are definitely like the kind of interviews that I would have done as a kid. Just kind of ask the questions that are almost random. Like, what's the grossest thing you've ever put in your mouth? And if you could change something about yourself, what was the maddest your parents were ever at you and stuff like that? Like, do you have nightmares? Questions that really don't have much to do with anything because you just kind of like, when you're a kid, you don't really know, I don't know, what the point behind interviews. Usually interviews are there to promote a product. Celebrities go around doing interviews is to promote their new movie. And, there could be personal stuff and things discussed along the way. But it seems like this particular interview kind of just didn't do with any of that. It didn't really talk about what it was like to be Fred Savage in this point in time in regards to him working on shows and movies. I mean, 1990... I can think of any number of movies and stuff that he was in. He was a few years out of The Princess Bride, which is probably what most people these days remember him from. I know he didn't have the biggest part of The Princess Bride, but it's still a memorable part. The Wizard came out, I think, around this time. Well, actually, let's have a look. See, this is December 1990. Okay, The Wizard came out a year earlier. As far as the things that it does kind of touch on, The Wonder Years. The Wonder Years was a big show that was a big critical darling, and it's just odd to me that they talk a little bit about it in sort of the introduction. Oh, he's from The Wonder Years, but the questions don't really have much to do with that. There's only one question that kind of touches on it, Well, he just talks about how he had to move to California away from Chicago. He had to kind of uproot his whole life for the sake of his acting career. And that to me is really interesting, and how his dad apparently still lives in Chicago and has to visit them every now and then just to, have a relationship with the kids. And so, yeah, I just feel like it was kind of a missed opportunity to really talk about what it was like to be a kid in the film industry and having to leave a lot of things behind in order to blossom and to be in a show full time, right? I mean, that's okay, it's a kids magazine, you can only expect so much, but I will say that it's a bit of a wasted opportunity. I think it's interesting, the fact that everyone, when you think of Fred Savage, this is the era you kind of think of him in. He's a little kid, he's the Wonder Years kid, or he's the Princess Bride kid, or the kid from The Wizard, or whatever. Since then he's had a whole career directing and still acting a little bit too, and he's done so many things, and he's been an adult for way longer than he was a kid. It's just kind of weird to think that what he will be remembered always as this kid, I think, for the most part. Probably, of course not by people who know him, but by the general public, because the stuff that he does now is a little more behind the camera, it's a little more low key. He's not the movie star that he was, or he doesn't have his own TV show. Yeah, that's just really interesting to me. I must confess I never liked The Wonder Years. I think I felt like I was supposed to, and so I watched some episodes. I just remember every time the show came on, I wanted to change the channel because the moment I heard that song come up, "Lend me your ears and I'm living," I just was like, no, I'm out of here. I wonder if I would appreciate it more now. Just like what we were talking about last time with Doogie Howser. I never really got into Doogie Howser as a kid. I just wonder if I would understand where the show was coming from now and what it had to say and what value it had. Because both those shows, Doogie Howser and The Wonder Years, were very popular, very well acclaimed, and I think fondly remembered still. But do I also have the desire to go back and try and watch The Wonder Years or Doogie Howser? I don't know. I got enough stuff to watch as it is. So maybe not. Maybe one day. So I wouldn't say that, The Wonder Years is so overrated. I'd say that when it was popular, I was very young and I didn't get it. On the other hand, The Wizard, I loved that movie as a kid. And basically this whole movie wound up just being an advertisement for Super Mario Bros. 3. Did not care. It was totally... In fact, I didn't think that made the movie better. I'm like, yeah, okay, awesome, Super Mario Bros. 3. Although I must admit, I don't think I've ever watched the beginning of that movie. I think I used to only ever catch it on TV or somewhere like a friend's house and never watched it all from start to finish. But I would love to watch it again. If for no other reason than the nostalgia factor. And because now I'm a bigger gamer nerd than I ever was, even as a kid. So this is the music section. This article is about Wilson Phillips, a band from, they released their first album in 1990, and they are Sheena Phillips and Wendy and Carney Wilson, who are related to, Michelle Phillips was a member of the Mama and Papas. Mama and Papas, I think they were California Dreamin'. Actually, that's a good song. Actually, that song holds up, in my opinion, but I think a lot of 60s rock holds up pretty good. Michelle Phillips from the Mama and Papas and Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys. So this whole thing is about how they are trying to not ride the coattails of their famous parents, although they do admit that opened a lot of doors for them, but they want to distinguish themselves and have a sound that is their own. Of course, you'd have to. If you're releasing an album in 1990, you can't have the same sound as an album in the mid-60s, right? I thought it was actually pretty interesting. And then I never heard Wilson Phillips before, but it talks about their big hit Hold On. I'm checking it out on Spotify, and I don't know if I've heard the song before, but it was apparently a big hit. I don't want to put in too much music into this video, but there's this one part in the chorus where it goes like this. And that triggers a memory in me of some other song, and it's driving me crazy because I cannot figure out what other song it is reminding me of. So if you know, please let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, it's not a bad track. It's a little cheesy, Apparently was dismissed as being a little corny back in the day, but it has a bit of a legacy. But it's not a terrible song. I think they're good singers. So yeah, it's a little snapshot of when Wilson Phillips were brand new, over 30 years ago. It also talks a little bit about other acts who have followed in the footsteps of their parents, like Ziggy Marley, son of Bob Marley, and as well as Julian Lennon, son of John Lennon. When I saw that, I'm like, wait, well, Julian Lennon? What about Sean Lennon, who I feel has made more of an impact on music than Julian Lennon? No offense to Julian Lennon, I'm sure he's made some good stuff, but then I'm like, oh, wait a minute, this was 1990, and then I looked it up, and yeah, he was 15 years old when this came out. So he was born in 1975. So he's made a bigger name for himself since this came out rather than before. So Dweezil Zappa also gets referenced as well, son of Frank Zappa. So over here we got I gotta admit that this video and movie section, I don't really like how it's organized. This is I feel like this is a bit of a mess. It's also just because for no other reason, it references all these things and it puts all these pictures in here, but it doesn't tell you what's what and who's who. And luckily most of these people I recognize, like Jimmy Stewart and Chevy Chase, Dan Aykroyd, and I'm pretty sure this Winona Ryder. But I don't know who this guy is. Corey Haim, maybe? See, they don't tell me. There's a bunch of names in here, but they don't tell me. So, yeah, so it just kind of talks about what's coming out on video. This is right around the time that... Okay, so here's something that I haven't mentioned on the show yet, but I think is worth mentioning, is back in the day, during the 90s, pretty well through the 90s, I think things started to change kind of as things transitioned to DVD. But movies weren't released on home video right away. Like nowadays, you can have something be in theaters and it'll be on streaming or on digital or something before the movie's even done its theatrical run. Now more than ever, especially after the pandemic. Like after the theatrical run, you had to wait a long time before you got a video release. So in this case, there was a summer blockbuster, Dick Tracy, and they're talking about how Dick Tracy's coming out for Christmas. And I think that's a good system, is for the summer movies to come out just in time for Christmas. So your favorite movie from the summer you can get at home for your holiday present. And it talks a little bit about some very popular Christmas movies, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation and Scrooge. Christmas Vacation, I don't like it. A lot of people really like it. It doesn't gel with me. I don't know. Maybe I'll have to watch it again. But this is a very unpopular opinion, I know. But maybe it's just that I find Chevy Chase insufferable. But Scrooge, I love Scrooge. Scrooge is one of my favorite Christmas movies ever. Yeah, so it references a bunch of the other classics as well. It's a Wonderful Life, which got popular through making its way through TV land. Christmas Story, A Miracle on 34th Street, which I've never seen. White Christmas, I have seen. And here it talks about a bunch of holiday movies coming out. I don't recognize most of these. Paul Hogan in Almost an Angel, Winona Ryder and Sharon. Mermaids. Okay, Mermaids I do know. Mind Games, Young Guns 2, Delirious with John Candy, Dan Aykroyd, and Chevy Chase. Tom Selleck's Three Men and a Little Lady. I do know that one. Yeah, actually, just recently I watched Three Men and a Baby, so... Was there ever a more iconic mustache? Music! So I guess we're back into music. We talked about music, but now we're back in. Tiffany was still a big deal. Remember Tiffany? Was she... I think I'm Alone Now? Yeah. Apparently Tiffany's still releasing music. Had one as recently as 2018. And Jon Bon Jovi... goes to the Young Guns 2 again. He's doing something for the soundtrack there. I remember when Jon Bon Jovi, when It's My Life came out in the 2000s, it just seemed weird that song was a hit when it came out. I heard it, I'm like, this sounds like it's from the 80s. From an artist who's from the 80s, and just was such a throwback, but it was a hit, and I didn't hate it. That was fine. It just seemed out of time. December is the best time for great TV specials. So it's talking about Christmas TV specials that are coming out. So let's see what we recognize here. The New Kids on the Block Saturday morning series is such a hit, they're doing a Christmas show for ABC. Okay, so there you go. New Kids on the Block Christmas special. That's the era. That's the era we're living in here. They should do a reunion special. Anyone else would watch? I'd watch that. I never watched the original special, but I'd watch the reunion special for sure. Watch for the Simpsons Christmas special. That's how they got their start last year. Wow. This came out when the Simpsons was a year old. They're like, we don't know how long this series will last, so we better capitalize on it while we can. And there's a hysterical holiday episode of Married with Children. Watch out, rumor has it the Bundys might star in their own feature film. Did that ever happen? Did Married with Children ever get a movie? Well, let's find out. I feel like if they did, that's something I would know. No, that movie never materialized. Which is fine. You know, that's how you know like something's dead, is when you start releasing movies, or maybe they just couldn't find the funding for it. Who knows why it didn't happen. Lights, a great story about the first Hanukkah, never heard of that. A Child's Christmas in Wales, and The Muppet Family Christmas airs on the Disney Channel. That's kind of a cool coincidence, because Allie and I are watching Muppet Family Christmas where Allie hasn't, which should be out very soon. I have not seen that in ages, so it's going to be really fun revisiting it after, like, it's really honestly just a haze. And of course it highlights some classic Christmas specials that will always be on the air. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Frosty the Snowman, Rudolph's Shiny New Year. Those are the Rankin Bass produced holiday specials. Was it Bass or Rankin who just died very recently? Jules Bass just passed away this October, so just not even 2 months ago. Rankin passed away in 2014, so both the duo who created so many holiday classics are no longer with us. But you know, as corny as some of those specials are, I think it's safe to say they left a significant impact on all of us, whether you like them or not. They are staples in our households. They have been for years and years and years. So yeah, irreplaceable. Also references Charlie Brown Christmas and How the Grinch Stole Christmas. My favorite Christmas special is How the Grinch Stole Christmas. I love How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Moving right along. Oh, look at this. DuckTales by Capcom for the NES. So there you go. That's when it came out. This is actually a game I had. And I don't still have it. We did wind up selling all our NES games, but I have it again. So I don't have my childhood copy, but I do have a copy of DuckTales. And that game holds up really well. It's a great game. And it's got a wonderful difficulty, because it's not the easiest to finish, but you can play a lot of it without getting frustrated. You just have to kind of like put the effort in to make it right to the end. So it's not NES hard, but it's hard enough that you're challenged. And part of the fun is also just finding all the secrets. Honestly, DuckTales is a terrific game. And of course, one thing that is always mentioned in retro gaming circles is the soundtrack. It is a great soundtrack. The Moon theme is the one that gets the most attention, but honestly, like, I love a lot of the music in there. I think the Amazon and Transylvania... Actually, honestly, all the tracks I think are great. Next, Backpacker Guide to the World. Now, again, I like to keep to the pop culture stuff. But, some of this stuff is probably mildly interesting, but eh. Although it does have a little bit about manatees, the big mermaids, apparently. Gotta love manatees, those big blubbery goofs in the ocean. Here's the spy section. Again, I just don't really know if there's much to sink my teeth into here, as far as like what to like present to you that might be interesting. And we got more comics. Which again, this is the fact that there are so many comics in here is something that I probably would have liked as a kid. But again, for the purposes of this show, there's just no reason to really go through with it. Here's something that, again, this isn't the most interesting, but this is basically just a little piece on really, really tall buildings in the world. It's funny that they don't make any reference. This is the 5 tallest buildings. This is right. So the 5 tallest buildings right down here. And it shows the World Trade Center, Bank of China, Empire State Building, John Hancock Center, and the Sears Tower. But the tallest building in the world at this point in time, which is not the case anymore, was the CN Tower, which is in Toronto. And it had that record until 2007. So it was from 1975, I think, to 2007, the CN Tower. And this was right in the middle of that. The CN Tower was the tallest building, and there's not a mention of it. It's like, come on, guys. You know, Canada exists. You can acknowledge Canada. We aren't going to bite. The polar bears mind. Then there's this little bit about kids in sports, but, you know, I just don't care. Then there's more comics. Oh, and then we're in the games section, which again, loved as a kid, but doesn't really do much for us right now. And then we're pretty much done. We just got a few little leftovers at the back. There's this little advertisement for this game, Puss in Boots, for the Nintendo. So I actually looked this up again right before doing this episode, and this game is apparently ridiculously easy, and it's based off an anime. So there was actually a first Puss in Boots game that was in Japan, and this is actually the second one that did wind up getting imported here, but the first one never did. Yeah, apparently it's just really easy until it gets really hard right near the end. So it's good for kids, except for the end. I haven't played it. Maybe one day I'll come across it. And then it's a little goodbye at the end. Oh, and another Capcom game, Little Nemo the Dream Master. I don't have this game. I never had this game, but I've heard it's really good. It's been on my short list of video games to get. And in the back is Tailspin, just an advertisement because I think that show was still pretty new at this point in time. So, honest review about this particular issue of Disney Adventures Magazine. Not a lot of meat on the bone, or at least for pop culture kind of stuff. Like stuff that's really nostalgic to look back onto. Unless you're a big Fred Savage fan and you want to know how much he used to beat his siblings up. So I think I would have liked this just fine as a kid, but I think Disney Adventures at this point, again, second issue, hadn't really found itself yet. It didn't really focus enough, perhaps, on some of the pop culture-y stuff that kids were really interested in. It did focus a little bit on TV and movies and stuff like that, but I think that like the TV and movie section was more or less just kind of like mentioning that things were coming out. When I think a little bit more highlighting of that kind of stuff and explaining about what things were about, I think that would have gone a long way. And there was no like highlighting of any video games at all, and that's really weird to me because the original Nintendo was in its heyday in 1990. Regardless, it's still kind of fun looking back a little bit on this era, and I discovered a few new things I discovered a few old things that I just didn't really know much about before. So, did you used to have this Disney Adventure magazine as a kid? What are your thoughts on the Wonder Years, Fred Savage, The Wizard, DuckTales, the video game, anything that you have thoughts on when it comes to the stuff we covered on in this magazine, please let me know in the comments down below. Love to chat about it. So this is the first of 2 Christmas videos that I hope to get up in time for Christmas. So thanks for watching. Have yourselves a very happy holiday, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, whatever it is you celebrate. Do so with love, and have a great rest of your year. See you next time.